Hello and welcome to this edition of Big Sky 35 Saturday Chat. I thought I would do something different while I'm talking and just I pulled out a random album. I have a bunch of them. I don't know, 30, 40 albums. I have never counted them. I have purged them. But I just put in players that I like. Most of them are retired. Uh, there's very few active players. I can only think of three off the top of my head right now that's in there. Pete Alonso, Trout, and Soto, I think. Um, so these are just guys that, like, if I see them, I pick them up, or if I open packs and they're in them, I keep them. When I'm going through value boxes and I see something I might not have, I will pick them up. And I am weird. I like everything alphabetical. I like everything very clean. I was kind of putting them in year order, but now I'm just trying to make the pages look nice uh, as I can when I'm adding them because it was almost impossible. But let's talk about the week there was, and then when I see something to talk about in the cards, I will, talk about. So this is George Brett. I don't know who else is in here, but uh, I really do like Brett a lot, and I have like all the way down to 82 here on this page. I can't really zoom out. I wish this was higher, but the overhead thing, I don't have Jeff Wilson money, so can't do that. Uh, but so like Saturday night, uh, I had Mike came on about halfway through, talked about, just chatted, talked about female sports. I think female sports right now has a good chance of doing something. And when I say do something, I'm not trying to say they're going to blow up like men's sports, but I think, you know, this is their opportunity. And if they don't do well, I it's never going to do well, right? So that's kind of how I feel about it. Um, so we talked about that. We talked about new stuff coming out, finally some new product coming out. Um, very happy about that. We have to actually 2023 platinum anniversary coming out. So I'll have a couple of rookies that I'm going after in that, plus all the colors. So um, still going after Pete's the 12th. We got a date uh, for the Series 2. Plus, Mike did give me a rundown of the inserts for the players. Like, at Series 1 had Easter and spring stuff on it. This time it's going to be like beach and summer stuff. Uh, I guess it's fun, whatnot. Uh, I don't know. This has always cracked me up. The Legends card for that year. Uh, Thought it was pretty funny. Um, yeah, I just I, I don't know how to feel about that. Then Monday, me and my dad talking baseball injuries. Little umpire talk again. Something's got to be done. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. I like that picture. Plus, I got it in the black, uh, so I like that one. Um, and then Wednesday had a nice stack to show off some Pete's and some very fun stuff for my collection. Not only Pete's but other stuff. Uh, Mike hit me up with some goodies as well in a package. So thank you, Mike. Uh, so that gets me to today. I went on a little. I like to think while I drive or quiet time, and this kind of hit me yesterday. I heard it. I've heard this. I haven't heard it in a while, but it'll come up every once in a while, and it's kind of makes me giggle that pretty much after this generation, vintage cards will die because the younger generation is just not interested in it. I can't speak for everybody, but I know I was born in 71, young child, child of 70s, teenager in the 80s, had a lot of fun in the 20s or in the 90s when I was in my 20s. But I really didn't think of, and I still don't think, I think of collecting more than I do. I am a collector of all years. If I like it, I collect it, right? But I do, yes, emphasize on certain things, look for certain things. Uh, why all of a sudden this glare get really bad? Um, so that's why I'm kind of showing you this. George Brett, he started in the 70s, played through the 80s, uh, and is still well known today. But as a fan of the game that watches the games, enjoys the games, you learn the history. How do you learn the history? Well, players breaking records all the time. And why? And who are they breaking? Players of the past. You start learning about those players. Yes, I learned about players of the 50s and 60s because of my father, right? But I've learned stuff of 30s, 40s, 1900s. Now, not everybody's like me and love history of everything, not just baseball, but I love history. I love to learn where things, why they are. Um, I love that stuff. But people, when you love a sport, you want to find out, okay, somebody just broke a record. Who they break? Now they're number 5 on the list behind these 4. Well, who are the 4 players? Well, I want to learn about them. And that's how you start. And as you get older, you hear more and more of this, and you hear stories from your people that came before you. You're going to learn about that generation. And yeah, I'm pretty sure most people now, when they were kids, they won't going after the 53 Bowmans. They were going after the 78 tops cards of the players they liked then. That's how we got started in this. Is we watched the games, enjoyed the games, and loved the players. I don't think ever vintage is going to die in everything. And see, I just don't collect cards. I collect uh also video games and stuff like that. So and that's what it kind of started with. Somebody was talking in video games where they think, the rise comes when a generation 25 years from when a release of the generation, because then a person has a job and some disposable income. Well, we feel like it's probably a little longer than that in our hobby. It's probably 35 to 40 years. You get the kids out of the house, now you really have disposable income. But, video game collecting is a lot newer than card collecting. People bought games but never thought of collecting, call themselves collectors. They like to play the games, which is a little different. It's a little different hobby. And they were talking about then about 10 years after that, they got what they wanted, or they're older now and just don't care, which I took offense to that because I'm 52 and I still like all that stuff, but I guess I'm not like Eric. I went to a thing today and I was the oldest person there, but the sweet spot was 20 to 30s, later 20s, 30-year-olds. There was no kids there buying, but anyway, uh, it made me think. I don't believe that, because younger people are going to want to know why when they go into a vintage store when they're in their 20s to look for something that they grew up with, and there's stuff that's in there that's older. That's what happened when people go to card shops or shows. Wow, what's that old looking card over there? And it gets their interest. I'm not talking about the ones that are walking around with the briefcases trying to flip and making quick, with the RPAs and all that stuff. But you notice that some of them do turn it, that we're seeing more and more of them with vintage cards as well. um, because that's how they find out about it. No, it's not shoved in their face. But my gosh, not every, there's a lot of vintage collectors on this YouTube channel. There is a lot of vintage when you go to these shows, and they're going to have questions. And I've heard vintage sellers say, when they come up with the Pelican case and they want to talk to them about the new stuff or whatever, they just kind of shoo them away. They're not interested. But that's, if you're really serious about getting them into vintage, then you want to ask them, hey, are you trying to trade or whatever? Because you could sell those cards. You can. You don't have to be that much of just a vintage seller to not be able to sell an RPA of a newer player or something like that. And if you're really serious about getting a young person involved in vintage, there's your opportunity to pass it along. Because we always say, if somebody's starting to collect, you want to collect what you're familiar with. Who do you like? What team do you like? And your price point. So, I don't think the vintage is ever going to be gone. I didn't know, my parents didn't know about 1900 players. I learned about them. And why did I learn about them? Because I saw them in cases at shows. I have friends that buy them because they learned about it. That's how it usually works. A friend buys it and you look at it and you're like, man, I like to have one of those. You don't have to be on YouTube to know that. Come on. I'm not getting angry, but I have, heard this, and I think it's I don't think it's true at all. I'd be surprised if it's true. And the reason why I'm also bringing this up is because we're having less and less of the baby boomers. And the baby boomers lived through the golden era of baseball, right? That 50s, 60s, and a lot of their collections that they have are in that time. I got my dad's collection. His cards were in that time range. So a lot of that stuff, for one reason or another, is going to be, I think we're going to be starting to see more and more of that hitting the the streets, man. I think, stuff gets left behind. The kids are not as into it, even though it seems like a lot of people, as much as we talk about how this hobby has grown, does it still feel like you, outside of us in the YouTube, in your real world and IRL, how many people collect sports cards? I have no one at my work. They all know, like, one guy has a son that started doing basketball. I have a couple of guys that do TCG at work. I have one guy that does non-sport and some racing, but it's mostly oddball stuff, and I enjoy talking to him. And I've had him get some great stuff. Ain't that kind of funny? But geez, we go to a show and the place is packed. I know there was a show in Hickory today. I know some YouTubers went to it. I hope they do some videos on it so I could hear about it. I just didn't have the funds to go. I just didn't want, that's an hour drive, and just to not spend money. I was like, I'll pass on this one, and no FOMO here. So I just wanted to chat on that, have a nice little almost round table, and maybe discuss more about this tomorrow night on my Sunday show at 8:00. Hope you see a shadow on my leg there. Still showing some Georges here. What else do I have in this book? Do I just have George Brett? Oh yeah. Let's see. What else? Oh, Rod Carew. Rod Carew. Mr. Carew himself. Sorry. Yeah, Rod Carew. So that's where I'm at with my collecting. Will Clark, Will the Thrill. He was one of my best friend that passed away. It's one of his favorite players. He loved the Giants, so he was a big Will Clark. We see him in Richmond. He's not anymore. I don't think, unless he does like special stuff, but he was the minor league hitting instructor for the Giants for a while. So he would be in Richmond, the Double A team. So yeah, that's how my books just players in order. I just picked one up. I saw Brett on the cover. Thought that would be a good one to show off a little bit while I was talking, a little different, and talk about and we in the definition of vintage always changes. So you had to define what people are not buying and call it vintage because it's 80s now that some people are calling vintage. I really think we need another category in there. I don't know what to call it, but I think or call vintage the golden era or like they do in comics, silver, golden, platinum. We got pre-war, maybe pre-war, post-war. I don't know what to do with that because I think it's too big of a grouping now. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. I think we're going to be okay. I think I see more and more kids knowing what they're doing when they're going. It's man, they little entrepreneurs out there. They're really driving. Or I think they're the main drivers of. I think that older teenager to young 20s is what's really driving the this hobby, the money wise part of it, at least. Like outside the millionaires, I'm talking about with the the 4-figure cards. I think that's what's the driving force behind that. Uh, and also, I'm gonna like to talk a little bit tomorrow night on the little. It feels like some desperation going on, especially on the eBay. Um, People with offers and also selling. Um, if you're just patient, don't have FOMO, I think you're better off right now. And I like to, I've talked about it a little bit last week, and I like to, or a week before with Carlos and Mike. Hopefully, we could talk a little bit. I don't know if Mike's going to be on tomorrow night. He's got to work real early Monday morning, but so do I. But anyway, that's beside the point. Uh, but we'll see who we can have on. It might be just me solo. I don't know. Uh, but it is the start of the national road to the national. Getting very close. It doesn't feel like it to me, but we are getting close. So that'll be tomorrow night. And I hope, me talking, showing some cards. Because I always wanted this Saturday to be like showing how I collect, a little bit more personal, more than just, hey, these are my pickups this week. How to, these are older. Almost all of these are from me. I did not buy these in the past year. These are cards. All these cards you're seeing, they're cards that I pulled in 1982, 1981, 1980. These were mine. They hold a special place to me because they've been with me for a long, long time. If they're vintage and I'm vintage, baby, like a fine wine. Woo! But anyway, uh until next time, like, share, tell a friend, and we'll see you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. That'll be 5/19/24. See ya.